Hi, everyone. Welcome,
Hey.
welcome. Let us know where you're joining from in the chat. And we're going to get started because we have an incredible presentation today and a lot of announcements. So I am Sheila. I'm one of your hosts for the year, and I have my co-host Rachel Ray Williams for the month of October. I am so excited, Ray, to do this with you. And I want to let you all know a little bit about Rachel Ray, even though I think there is so much more to share about this incredible human being. So Rachel Ray is from Detroit, Michigan, and is a human animal well-being professional that fosters a culture of community-centered solutions. Rachel Ray believes in building pathways to equitable pet adoption and pet care that results in strengthening the human and animal bond. She celebrates over 17 years experience and has a proven track record of being a community-focused leader. I have personally had the privilege of working with Rachel Ray in varying capacities, and I can attest that she is an inspiring change maker and visionary who truly turns her ideas into actions. And she's known for her ability to bring people together, create meaningful connections, and build pathways that make animal welfare more inclusive and equitable. So Ray, thank you so much for joining me this month. I'm so excited to be with you in this. And I know everyone, please welcome Ray. I know we're going to have a great month.
Yes, thank you so much. I
Sorry,
really
guys.
appreciate it. That's so good. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. It's just so good to be here. So what I'm gonna do is we do have a question of the day. Is that right, Sheila? We're gonna start with the question of the day. All right, cool. So the question of the day is if your organization could add just one new resource to help families in crisis to keep their pets, what would it be? So if you're thinking about what could your organization do um, to help pets in crisis, what would that be? If you can put it in the chat. We'd love to hear real good ideas, ideas that haven't been done, ideas that's been on your mind, good ideas that you saw in other places.
Ooh, some good answers already.
Hmm. Pets and people allowed in shelters. That's good. Immigration, defense attorneys. Yes, Diana. More staff and more money.
Sounds like an overall theme of like safety net services, which is incredible.
Hmm. Post-adoption support. And keep on adding them to the chat as you're thinking about the things. If you have good examples or you've seen good tools out there, something that's helped you, you can always drop those in the chat too. We'll have resources put together at the end of this call, so you'll be able to refer to it at the end.
Yes, thank you all for these thoughtful responses. Please keep them coming. And as you do so, I'd like to introduce my colleague Irene to announce our September grant giveaway winners.
Thank you so much, Sheila and Ray. And hi, everyone. I'm Irene. I'm a senior grant specialist at Maddie's Fund, and it is my pleasure to announce the September prize winners. All right, can everybody see this screen? Looking good? Okay, so the winners I will announce are for our weekly community conversations. So in the month of September, we have 4 winners of $2,500. The first is Chris Holland from Indie Humane of Indianapolis, Indiana, who watched live. Penny Page Caraway of Animal Friends in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, who also watched live. Kay Rosenberger of Providence Animal Center in Media, Pennsylvania, who also watched live, and Rachel Rothman of Patty Baker Humane Society, Naples in Naples, Florida. So all of you watched live, thank you. And we do open the opportunity for those who watch on demand as well. The next winners will be announcing are for the Matt Pet Forum monthly giveaway of $3,000. That is going to Drew Domalik at Happily Ever After Animal Sanctuary in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Maddie's Pet Forum quarterly giveaway of $1,000 is for Latanya Smith of LC's Foundation in Detroit, Michigan. And Maddie's Pet Forum's 30th anniversary $1,000 giveaway goes to Lani Velasquez of Lux Rescue in Trenton, Georgia. So congratulations to our winners. Do we have anybody on the call today who would like to quickly chime in about their organizations?
I don't mind sharing if that's okay. Okay. So Elsie's Foundation is in Detroit, Michigan. I do things pretty much what you guys are talking about, how we assist people and pets. So it's an organization that's been up for probably about a year or so now. It's doing pretty well, but thank you so much to Maddie's Fund. This will help me in a bunch of ways. I'm actually headed to Ghana in a couple weeks to do some stuff with some younger children at a Montessori school. So I'll be able to get some stuff to take there with them. But this is awesome. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate Maddie's Fund and LC's Detroit Foundation in Detroit.
I can go.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I am Penny, and I am from Animal Friends in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And we are an animal shelter that serves both the urban areas and the suburban areas of Pittsburgh. And our community support programs and safety net programs have been really feeling a lot of pressure lately, and a lot of increased needs that we're definitely feeling called to help support. So this will, go a long way in helping us to support our clients, and we are so grateful for this support and for your continued inspiration and education. Thank you.
I'd like to say something. Is that okay? Yeah. Okay. Um, the organization I work for is called Herzog's Heroes. And what we do is our goal is to breed better and shelter less. So actually to prevent dogs from entering shelters because they're so overrun with pets. And how we do that is working with breeders, all different kinds of breeders, helping them put together a responsible breeding program where if a dog is not working out with the client, they will take the dog back. And also we're trying to reduce the amount of suffering of dogs in pet shelters, dog shelters. So that's a little bit about Herzog's Heroes.
Thank you so much for
And
sharing. You see, Drew, you're on the call. You were one of the winners announced. I don't know if you wanted to chime in.
sure, sorry, I don't have a camera,
Quickly.
but can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Perfect. Yeah, I'm with a volunteer at Happily Ever After Animal Sanctuary in Greenway, Wisconsin, and our vision is a world where the life of every companion animal matters. And our mission is to increase humanity's capacity to care for its companion animals. So we basically have dogs and cats, and we get transports from the south. So it allows us to streamline the process where we can have a smaller amount of animals at our adoption center. And, obviously we have a foster program too. And then as we need more animals, we can get transport so that animals don't get put down on euthanasia lists. And works out really well. And we have a really positive environment. And it's just a lot of fun to be around. I've been volunteering there for about 3 years now, and I'm the overnight guy, so we have a lot of volunteers that go to sleep early, and I'm a night owl, so I've been going there every day, literally 7 days a week for about 2 years now, when I took the night shift on, and it's just been a really empowering, positive place to be. So they'll definitely be excited, and it's coming at a time where we're going through a lot of changes, trying to add more programs and trying to expand our services. So it's literally the perfect time for this. So thank you guys.
Thank you so much, Drew. So we congratulate all our winners, and Amber, my colleague, has posted the link on how to enter to win for the month of October. But for now, I will give it back to Ray and Sheila.
Thank you so much, Irene, and congratulations to all the winners. If anyone has any national updates, please go ahead and put them in the chat now. You can also go ahead and add them to our discussion thread on Maddie's Pet Forum, but otherwise, I'll hand it over to you, Ray.
Thanks. So while you guys are putting your national updates in the chat, I'll go ahead and introduce our speaker today. We have Garrett Parsons on the line, and Garrett is a pet support director for Found House Interfaith Housing Network in Cincinnati, Ohio. For the past 9 years, he has grown to run the pet support program, which offers temporary shelter to animals of owners experiencing housing insecurity. Under Garrett's leadership, the Pet Support Program has become a vital resource to pet owners in Cincinnati seeking help with the shelter or housing, and ensures that families are not overlooked and remain intact. Garrett has spoken extensively about the importance of offering pet inclusive services to families at various animal welfare and social services conferences, including those put on by Humane World for Animals and the Coalition for Homelessness and Housing in Ohio. In his free time, Garrett serves on the board for ClickOnDeer.org, an innovative and humane deer fertility control program in Cincinnati. He also likes to spend his time hiking, backpacking with his wife, and completing house projects, and hanging out with his 4 cats and newly adopted dog. Thank you so much, Garrett, for joining us. You can go ahead and put your slides up if you want, or if you want to say a quick hi.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you so much, Ray. Just want to say thanks for attending. Looking forward to sharing, the work that we do here in Cincinnati, and the opportunity to share our story. So let me pull up our slides. Make sure it gets set up appropriately. Okay, that should be full screen. That sound look okay?
Mm-hmm. Yep,
okay,
good.
Awesome. So again, my name is Garrett Parsons. I'll jump right into it. And I work for an agency called Found House Interfaith Housing Network. I've been here at Found House in Cincinnati for 9 years, 10 years if you include my intern year. I graduated from University of Cincinnati with my bachelor's of social work. Didn't know that I was going to be able to do kind of animal welfare and social work at the same time and combine some passions, but here we are. So what I'll do is, this will be the longest amount of time I spend on this slide. This slide will be the longest I spend on one. I'm going to share a little bit about the agency as a whole, and then I'm going to move on to the pet support program, and that's what we're going to focus on for the remainder of the time. Found House Interfaith Housing Network. We have been a provider of family emergency shelter since 1991 here in Cincinnati. We started very small, and we utilize a method of sheltering families that you see across the country in Family Promise or IHN models. So the families that are enrolled in our emergency shelter program will stay at congregations at night, and then they'll stay at the day center, which is where our kennels are located in all of our offices during the day. So at night they're at churches, during the day they're here, and they kind of go back and forth. So that's a model that you'll see across the country. And that model is important to talk about because it's kind of what led us to start the pet program in the way it did. But before we get there, in addition to shelter for families, we offer a lot of different types of housing assistance. We have several housing programs. Permanent supportive housing, if you've ever heard of that, rapid rehousing. We have a lot of prevention programs aimed at working with families that have found themselves housing insecure and need a little bit of additional housing assistance once they get housed. So in addition to having shelter and housing programs, we also have our own PSH building that was built and constructed a couple of years ago in 2023. So that building, I might have a picture of it later in the slides. We call it Melrose Place. It's a 26-unit apartment building that's completely pet inclusive, thankfully. And we'll talk about that here pretty soon. And that's just one of the ways that we provide housing assistance. And hopefully in the future, we do that even more. So again, family homeless shelter, a lot of housing programs. The entire point of Found House is working with a family, how they come, how they appear. So that's why I say what is a family, but that's what led us to starting the pet support program. We really believe that when we meet a family, they define what makes them a family. It's not our job to define that. So if a family comes, well, so it is what led us to be the first shelter in Cincinnati to allow fathers and children in the same building. Eventually, it's what led to same-sex couples with children, aunts and uncles that had custody of their nephews and nieces, kind of so on and so forth. But that's what led us in 2014 to say, well, if your family is defined as having a companion animal with you, then that's our job to make sure that we have appropriate spaces for those animals and that you're going to move through kind of the shelter system and keep your family intact. So that's when we started the pet support program. We saw families coming to our front door. The first animal actually was a turtle named Slowpoke. We had found that a child had hidden the turtle in one of the locker spaces. So as soon as we discovered that turtle, and saw how important it was, we thought, well, we need to make sure that there's an appropriate housing for the turtle, and you're not going to put it in the locker. We're going to really kind of respect what makes up your family. So that was the inspiration for the pet support program, and it's what allowed us to install a lot of kennels, which I have pictures of here pretty soon. So fast forward 10 years, and here we are today. We've kind of been growing a lot every year. We will shelter temporarily companion animals, dogs, cats, bearded dragons, birds, fish, rabbits, you name it, for pet owners experiencing housing insecurity, needing to go to the hospital, needing to access treatment, whether it's for injury rehab or substance use, etc. We will shelter them temporarily until they can go back home. So that's exclusively what the pet support program does and has been doing for the last 10 years. We'll serve, anyone can be a pet owner. And that's what I really love about the job, is that we get to work with families, individuals, LGBTQ individuals. We get to work with the elderly. We get to work with veterans, kind of like the whole entire population, because anyone can have a pet and anyone can also find themselves experiencing homelessness. So we don't discriminate in that regard. We take everybody. In addition, I should have had a list written down. I don't think I did in this presentation. In addition to providing temporary shelter on site in the kennels, we also have a foster program to expand our capacity. We have a pet food pantry, pet supply pantry for low-income pet owners that give us a call. We help with pet deposits. We help with access to vaccinations, access to spay neuter, access to behavioral consultations, all in the name of keeping a family together. So all of the families that we're working with are at risk, they're lower income, high barrier, at risk of falling into homelessness if they're not already experiencing housing insecurity. That is what we offer, but I talked about our kennel facilities. So the ones on the left are our kind of original chain link kennels that were created in 2014 that are still holding up to this day. It's a small room with 4 dog kennels. In 2020, we were able to install the glass facing kennels. Goodness, you can see all the smudges in that picture. We installed those in 2020. So that's another 4 runs to expand our capacity. Before those glass facing kennels were around, we did pop-up crates. We got creative, as we all do in this world and in this field. We also are in the process right now of installing 4 additional kennels so that our capacity will be 12. We've had 12 dogs on site before, pop-up crates, things like that, but it'll be a little bit more legitimate. Our cat kennels are pretty spacious. We have 6 right here. We have an additional 8 that we just purchased. We're in the middle of an expansion right now. So at any given time, we're sheltering about 30 animals on site. It's been a little bit less as of recently. We'll have an additional 20 to 30 in our foster program. So let's just say 50 to 60 pets. So that's 40 to 50 households, some are multifamily households at any given point, all in the greater Cincinnati area that are either experiencing homelessness, they're in the middle of their treatment program, they're accessing hospital services that they otherwise wouldn't have accessed. And that's another thing, is that what we're doing, I'm going to say keeping families together a lot. We're preventing families from having to undergo the trauma of surrendering a pet when they don't have to. we're also allowing an entire population of people to access services that, had our program not been available, they wouldn't have gone to the hospital, they wouldn't have gone to treatment or sought services at a shelter, because it meant they had to get rid of their pet. And everyone knows how hard it is sometimes to surrender an animal. And that's also another reason why a lot of people won't access those services. So I'd like to think that we're really kind of holistically helping a family, keep themselves together, but also get the help that they need. We have some outdoor spaces for our dogs. Pictured here, we've got 2 outdoor dog runs that rarely look this clean, but I'm really proud of these pictures. We also have a brand new space that sits across the street from our building where our kennels are, that we call the Zoomy Zone. It's a very large dog park-esque, area. There's actually 2. That's the larger one on the right that you can see in view. It's a space where we can bring our dogs over to really get their energy out, which is a lot better than, the small runs that we have right here that are like 25 by 20. Now, we have 2 staff in our pet support program. I am more of a kind of big picture, so I'll do a lot of these trainings. We'll coordinate with the owners, we coordinate with their service providers. We've got another staff that's our pet support advocate who onboards all of our volunteers, make sure that our shelter is running as perfectly as it can. The majority of the care for the animals in our building are done through volunteers. So volunteer retention, coordination, onboarding is really important in our program. So let's talk about our approach to this type of work. When we work with a family, we're not just working with the head of household, we're not just working with the animal, we're working with the entire family. So during an intake, when we have space for an animal, yes, we're asking questions about the animal itself. We're getting, medical history, personality, behavior, figuring out what it needs, where it's going to be sheltered. We have access to owners, so we get to ask, what are your nicknames for your animal? What are their favorite toys? Do they themselves have their own emotional support stuffy toy? Whatever it is, we have access to the owner, which is super helpful. In addition to the animal, we also work just as much with the family. We all here have a social work background. I'm a licensed social worker, and I have been since I started the job. We'll make sure that the family is enrolled in services if they're eligible for them. So a lot of families come to us before they've even started to try and access shelter, tried to access supports that could help them. And then sometimes we hear about them later. We provide a lot of referrals to shelters. We can help them with food stamp applications. We can make sure that they know where treatment programs are. Like, the list kind of goes on. Once they are linked up with services, we make sure that their service providers know about the animal, which is super important. And we'll talk about that in some considerations for this type of programming. But so we're working with a lot of different folks. There's a lot of hands in it. There's a lot of different every day looks completely different. Some days are a little more animal heavy, some days are really human heavy, some days are a good mix of both. But again, yeah, so we work with the entire family system. We ask them what their goals are, which is kind of just social work 101. We're asking, because every family comes to us different, with different barriers, different goals, different hurdles that they have to get housed, which is, of course, the outcome that we're looking for. They may need help with employment, they may need help with benefits, they may need help with transportation. We can either help them directly or point them in the right direction. And then how we measure success is, did the family stay together? Did the animal return to owner? So RTO, that's the best outcome. And then along the way, were any additional goals met? Is that family in a place, once they're housed, that they're going to be sustainable and not be at risk of losing their housing again? Because typically with our population, as soon as they're housed, it doesn't mean that they're not out of poverty. It doesn't mean that there aren't going to be struggles in the future. It doesn't mean they're going to recidivize and kind of fall back into homelessness, which is why we try and do some amounts of aftercare. As soon as an animal gets to go home to their owner, we ask, or we let them know, if you need assistance in the future, please reach out to us. So every given year, I'd say we assist maybe a small handful of animals that have been in our program before. But let's talk about numbers for a second. You can see that we've had slow growth over the years. We've kind of gotten to a point, well, I did mention we're middle expansion, so those numbers will be higher. Back in 2016, which is the earliest records I could find, that was my first year starting, We just helped a couple animals. It was like 4 dogs and 5 cats, something like that. That first year, we really grew a lot. And then we've kind of just grown considerably since then. So last year, we sheltered, I think it's 178 animals total for people experiencing housing insecurity. And we had well, I'll talk about return to owner rate in a second. We're on track this year to shelter more. We have to say no last year. So again, we sheltered 178. We said no to over 1,100 animals that belonged exclusively to owners facing housing insecurity or the need for other services that did not want to surrender their animals. So that means we're nowhere close to meeting the need. We need to keep expanding. We need to keep doing this work. The majority of our animals returned to their owners. Last year, 87.6% returned to their owner. We had 2.3% adopted. So what I mean, that means how we are kind of categorizing it is the family intentionally surrendered their animal to us and we found them a new home, whether it was through a rescue partner, one of our own volunteers, a foster, and then we had less than 1% abandoned. So I think it was just one dog that the owner just kind of pieced out, didn't know where they went, hope they're okay. I think there's a lot of reasons why someone might do that, but that's the how I differentiate between adoption and abandoned. Couple categories not represented. We had 1 owner pass away. We had 2 animals pass away in care. We weren't able to provide good enough medical interventions. They were kind of out of our control. But you can see that a program like ours is wildly successful if that many animals can return to their owner. And I think that we really attribute it to the amount of work that we do on the human side of things, working with the owners, working with their case managers, working with their landlords, to ensure that throughout the entire process, because a lot of things have to happen to get housed, that animal gets to reunite with their family. What I don't have on here before we kind of move on is to talk about our length of stay. Our average length of stay last year was 99 days. So that's how long it takes for an animal to get back to their owner. A lot of stays are a lot shorter. A lot of stays are a lot longer. If we have an animal that's been here for a long time, we'll move them to our foster program. We'll take them to dog parks. We'll really try and provide as much enrichment as possible. But I think that, having that long of a length of stay, it's why our cat kennels are so big and spacious. It's why volunteers are getting dogs out of their kennels 3 times a day. It's why the dog park across the street is super helpful. I think that when I see programs doing similar work in other places and they have 30-day deadlines, sometimes I kind of chuckle at those because you work with so many pet owners, so many families that are facing homelessness, and again, so many things have to happen before they're housed. To do that in 30 days is sometimes absolutely absurd. Doesn't mean it's impossible. It just means it's not very likely, unfortunately. And it's gotten harder since COVID. Our family shelter length of stay doubled during COVID. It's that much harder to find housing. To give people perspective on Cincinnati, city of Cincinnati has about 300,000 people in it, and then the greater Cincinnati area has a little over 2 million. So it's comparable with cities like Columbus and Ohio and Indianapolis, Indiana, Buffalo, New York. I think Austin's bigger, much bigger, but it has a similar feel as I'm told. But yeah, that's kind of what we're looking at. The biggest thing that we talk about, that we really pride ourselves on, is our ability to collaborate with social service agencies. It's why I think our return to owner rates are great, why our length of stays are lower. I really think that, and I'll give it a good example. When you're working with a family that's in shelter, trying to find housing, they work with a case manager. A lot of the times that case manager is helping them find housing. A lot of folks will qualify for various housing programs when they're in shelter. And a lot of shelters across the country are set up like this in terms of access to federal funding to get them housed. We have families qualify for housing programs, which means they get another social worker or caseworker. And it might mean that they also get a housing specialist. So you have a lot of professionals in the environment that are trying to help this family. And if that family is not talking about their animal, if we're not mentioning the animal, a lot of the times the animal gets, it just kind of goes over the head. People forget about it. It's one more thing that they just, don't focus on. So what ends up happening is that family will be told, okay, we found an apartment for you. The showing is next Friday, and then there's going to be a lease signing. And then before you know it, they're at the lease signing and they discover that that animal's not allowed there. So then, we can sometimes pursue the emotional support animal route to make sure that that animal can be allowed. But I think what took me a while to realize also in this working with this population and this type of housing, we work with a lot of private landlords, we work with a lot of bigger landlords. Landlords can kind of do what they want. It's certainly things that if we had the time, we could fight it. And there are groups that can help us do that. But at the end of the day, if a landlord says, yep, dog's not allowed, I don't accept ESA letters, and we say, you can't do that, they say it doesn't matter. We sometimes move on in that family, to prevent the landlord from taking it out on them later, finding another reason to kick them out. That's, that family will end up surrendering. So that goes to show why it's so important from day one to ensure that the family, I tell the families all the time, let your social worker, let your case manager know about your animal, let them know it's a non-negotiable. It's not up to our families to do that on their behalf. It's why we do it, but I definitely encourage them to do it. I have caseworkers fill out forms to say, yes, I acknowledge that there's an animal in this household, that the animal's not in my shelter, but I know it's a part of this household. When you do that, I think it solidifies pets as family members across the agencies. A lot of our agencies here in Cincinnati are not incredibly pet inclusive, and we're trying to change that. And I think that our program like ours existing and sometimes being a bother to a lot of these social workers, let them know that this is important. It is important to keep families with their people. It is important that there's housing that's pet inclusive, so on and so forth. So again, it can be difficult when there's non-pet inclusive agency buy-in. That's why we do a lot of trainings. We do kind of like a pet inclusive case management training to a lot of human service providers. Social work 101 is allowing a family to define themselves, the client's right to self-determination. So it's very easy in theory to go to a human services agency and say, hey, if you ask your client who's in your family and they say, yeah, it's going to be me, my partner, my 2 kids, and my dog, those are non-negotiables. Well, then we have to respect that as a human service provider. So it can be tough to get buy-in, but it is possible. We, again, I'm kind of reiterating with the same thing, need to be on the same page, because if not, that's what ends up leading to owner surrenders. We do require, again, I said they have to fill out a form, basically says, I acknowledge that there's a pet. I'll reach out to the pet support program. If pet deposit assistance is needed, I'll reach out to them. If transportation of the animal is needed. When you do that, it just makes everything a whole lot easier. We're at the point where we're receiving referrals from the majority of human services and animal welfare agencies in Cincinnati on a monthly basis. We'll get 15 to 20 agencies that'll reach out to us, in addition to folks that just find us on Google. It took a long time to get there. It took a long time to be more of a household name in Cincinnati, and we're still not quite there. We're still at the point where a lot of agencies only know of us because one employee there really likes our mission and they reach out to us. The more we can get in agencies, written as part of their kind of formal structure, the better. So safety net programming, emergency fostering, and also completely rewind to the beginning. We work with survivors of domestic violence when I was listing off who we work with. So we will work with domestic violence survivors. That's actually probably a good quarter of who we work with, in addition to the shelters in town that are also pet inclusive. There's just not nearly enough spaces. But when you're talking about this type of programming, it's important to kind of think about, how are people going to hear about what you're doing? How are people going to send in referrals? Can someone self-refer? Does an agency need to refer? Of course, pets are family members. Everyone in this call knows that. You need to consider length of stay. Do you have to have a length of stay deadline? Do you have to, can it be case by case? When we work with families, in our paperwork, it says we can shelter their animal for a year. And the only reason we have to say a number at all is just to protect us in case families are not making progress. Progress looks very differently for various families, but there are instances where someone is just completely stuck. we can only help so much, and we get to a crossroads and we say, we're unable to shelter your animal. That doesn't happen very often, but I think it's important to know what are going to be your capabilities, what are going to be your, how long can you shelter the animal for? How can you remove barriers? One big way we remove barriers is by not requiring the animal to be altered upon intake or upon exit. It's rare, but we do have animals go through the program unaltered and they leave the program unaltered. But I still tell the families, obviously benefits of spay neuter. It's their choice. It's not mine. If I required it, a lot of families would not access our program to begin with. And the whole point of the program is to keep the family together, not just get the animal fixed. What I do offer families is, hey, as soon as you get housed, down the road, if you change your mind, call me. It's paid for. We'll even transport the animal. So a lot of times that happens. We have a very, very small percentage of animals that leave the program and do not get sterilized. It's generally bigger male dogs, but we won't even get into, why people don't spay neuter. That's not this presentation. Who are your partners going to be? So are you going to partner with certain agencies? We reserve kennels for a family shelter in town, for a domestic violence shelter, and for a domestic violence advocacy organization. The reason we reserve kennels for them is because their agency has basically determined we want to be pet inclusive. We just don't want animals on site. We will pay you for kennel space. So it is a good form of income for us. Programs like these, housed in human service agency organizations, they can be hard to fund. It can be hard to find grants that we are eligible for. That's one thing we did. What type of support are you going to offer? How are you going to communicate with the families? How are you going to communicate with their caseworkers? Are you going to communicate with their caseworkers? Foster retention kind of speaks for itself. Fostering for owned animals is a little bit different than a typical foster program. There are added elements of complications. We keep communication between owner and foster confidential, or we don't allow communication, I should say. Every now and then we'll have a foster at reunification day. Those can be really sweet moments, but we are the middleman between foster and between pet owner. We allow owners to visit their animals about once a week, sometimes a little bit more, especially on the first half of their stay. And then you just need to think about liability. We don't allow, or we don't force owners to surrender so we can house them, but we do have them sign release forms to protect us. So I think there's a lot of things to consider, and I didn't cover it all. So if you have, we're going to have time for questions here pretty soon. We can talk about some of those considerations, but these are what we found to be pretty important ones. And I covered a little bit of this in some of the considerations, but I think, pilot projects are always great. Start small, work with one homeless shelter, find one advocate in a human services agency that's super jazzed about this work. Animal lovers exist everywhere. The opposite is true too, which can make it difficult, but find an ally that's really interested in partnering with your rescuer shelter that wants to kind of create this partnership, create this type of program, and really utilize them, because they're gonna be really helpful on the human side of things. It totally depends on the resources in your area. We're lucky to have a spay neuter vaccine clinic nearby that subsidizes a lot of our vaccines, so we don't have to pay for a lot of those things. So shout out to UCAN in Cincinnati. Yeah, it's complicated work though, because you're dealing with a lot of different struggles, a lot of different barriers. The animal at the end of the day sometimes is like, one of the easier things to work with the family's barriers. Form a coalition, hire a social worker. We're seeing that more and more in the animal welfare space, which is awesome. And on a kind of a limited basis, if you have any questions, I'm going to provide my contact information. I want people to reach out. I want, email, text, call. Let me know if you have questions. We're happy to try and, help those around that want to try and do this work. So with that, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. I think we're right on time. We have some time for questions.
We absolutely have time for questions. We got tons of questions in the chat. Really appreciate your presentation. It was really good. I was surprised to hear all the things about Cincinnati. You did mention a group, UCAN Cincinnati. Are you able to find a link for that and throw that in the chat for us?
Yeah, sure.
And I'm gonna find some questions that we have in here. Um, so I have one question from Azure. I hope I said that correctly, but she said, how easy was it to get rapid rehousing and other housing institutes to partner with you?
So, kind of a two-sided question, because we have those programs in, under the umbrella of Found House IHN. So it's very easy to partner with those programs because my colleagues run those programs upstairs. As far as other agencies that house those programs too, kind of just like in general, working with housing programs, it's kind of hit or miss. If your question is more how to get those programs, that's kind of, I'm not quite sure. Because all of those are funded through, every county has a continuum of care that holds funding from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, from HUD. So every county is structured a little bit differently and supported a little bit differently. Some do have those programs, some don't. It kind of depends.
So yeah,
Gotcha.
oh, I was one to ask the question.
Yeah, please.
Yes,
Gladly.
ma'am. You can go ahead and clarify yourself.
Okay. I was asking more along the lines of pets. I'm the director and founder of Pet Stay. It's the same type of organization as you. We try to keep families together by finding pet inclusive housing for families in transition. So right now it's because I'm just starting. It's just me, and I'm like working with like Motel 6, Candlewood Suites, and the Houston Humane Society to like foster and board pets while their families are trying to get. But I'm wondering, like, since I have partnered with Motel 6 and Candlewood Suites, how easy would it be for me to partner with like one of the rapid rehousing, or we know how they give them vouchers for hotel stays and stuff? Would they be willing to partner with a new agency like mine to keep people with their pets? Do you think, like, later on you kind of answered it by saying like find one person that's
find the ally.
sympathetic to what you're saying. So yeah, I was just wondering, like, how easy would you think it would be for someone that's like starting out that doesn't have any government type of funding to get those agencies to send their clients over, or to work with them and help fund them in ways that they already fund?
Well, so the funding is really difficult, but I will say housing providers, housing programs are always looking for more tools in their toolbox, more referral sources. So once you find a contact for those housing programs and give them a call and explain what you're doing and explain it as a resource for their clients, then as far as I'm concerned, they should be all in. As far as, getting funding from those programs to help pay for like temporary boarding and things like that, our program is not funded by any government dollars, by any federal funding.
No, I mean like how they already fund them. Like they'll give them like a voucher or a certain amount of money to move. Would they still be willing to do that within the frame of they're working under my program? Would they still be willing to fund them to utilize that within my program?
So their clients could be sent to you. You would not be able to send clients to them because their clients qualify. I mean, it's a little bit different probably depending on where you are, but our families in Cincinnati have to be qualified in shelter, or if they're street homeless, they get an assessment done, and then they can score into like PSH range or rapid rehousing range. Those clients with pets can be referred to us. But if I have someone and I want to get them in PSH, I can't refer them. I have to tell them how one does get into PSH or rapid rehousing. I think I get your question, but it is kind of a complicated. How do you get into certain programs? How is funding used for different families, and depending on the program, accessing that funding is very difficult. Hopefully I answered your question okay, Azure.
Right. It was basically like, so family qualified for rapid rehousing, but they didn't say one of those instances you're talking about. They did not tell the place that they were moving that they could have pets. So now they've come to me to find pet inclusive housing for them and their pets. Would the rapid refunding still validate their assistance through my program if I was to find them housing. I wouldn't receive the funds, but they would still be able to apply the funds to something else.
Yeah, they would.
And I know that's probably a higher than you question. I'm
If the
sorry.
family's already moved in somewhere that's not pet inclusive, it can be hard for them to agree to move them somewhere else once they're already housed.
Okay.
I think a lot of providers would say no. There are instances where you can move a family, like Violence Against Women Act, protects people from, being able to relocate from one place to another. I've never heard of someone relocating because of a pet on like the housing program side.
And we'll continue these questions and these conversations on the forum. So if you want to ask questions, read other people's responses, definitely hop onto the forum after this. Garrett has generously said that he'll share his email address. So he'll set up some time and he can talk to folks after this. But we'll have like maybe one or two more questions. Let me see here. I have one question is the church and is the church shelter and the pet shelter close together?
So and this was kind of like in the explanation that I didn't do a good job. We partner with multiple congregations, so our families will stay at let's just say a church down the road every night for a week, and then the next week they'll be at a different church. It might be 10 minutes away, it might be 15 minutes away, and that's why we created kennels on site, because we couldn't coordinate with all of the different churches to allow the animals, cats, dogs, to go to those churches. Especially cats. We don't want to keep moving them. It's what led us to creating the kennels themselves.
Gotcha. So interesting, a church coalition. Let's see here. Let's see. And I have a question about funding. Does the funding come from social services agency or yourself? And or your work, you kind of answered this a little bit. You have like mixed funding to support the work that you guys do?
Yeah, the majority is grant funded. We've been lucky to receive grants from like the Gray Muzzle Foundation. We received a safe housing grant from Red Rover. We used to be funded PetSmart Charities, and then some more local and state level foundations that support either just exclusively animal sources, or some that are kind of like they do human and animal stuff. Small donor base. We have some fundraisers from time to time, but it's mostly grant funding.
See, Sheila, did you see any other questions? I didn't see. Oh, and I had another one. I did see this one. Could you repeat the average length of stay? I heard a couple little chatters about that. I heard 99 months, 99 days. Which one was it?
Last year it was 99 days, if I'm correct. But the year before that, I think it was 110 or 115. I'd like it to be a lot lower, but it's kind of out of our control. It really depends on the housing market. It depends on just who we're working with, because it's just kind of all over the place.
Yeah, and different families need different things in different areas.
Exactly.
So,
I will
one family
say
might
the
Go
bigger
ahead.
the dog, probably the longer length of stay that we have. It's easier to find, unfortunately, it's easier to find housing that's cat friendly, small dog friendly. And then if you have a big dog, I mean, landlords throw out that horrible like breed restricted list, and they have like stupid weight limits. Yeah, but again, that's a whole other
Other
battle.
thing. Yeah. What have you guys at your organization done any policy work to make housing more inclusive in Cincinnati to help alleviate some kind of the pain that you guys have in your organization?
Not so much policy, because we're so just involved in the day-to-day direct services with our clients. We did encourage one of our largest affordable housing providers. They're called Over the Rhine Community Housing. They've got like 600 plus units of housing. Traditionally, they've been not pet friendly, but back in 2023, we started conversation in 2019. 2023, they became pet inclusive for all of their units. So that was helpful.
Yeah.
Not so much policy work. And I did see, I think also to help with perspective, someone asked about our board and our staff. Found House has about 30 staff, to give you an idea, 2 in the pet program. So there's a lot of other staff that do a lot of other things. And then, yeah, we have a board of directors. I think there's maybe 10 on our board for Found House, and that's for the entire agency.
Well, that's so love to have you, Gary. We could continue this conversation all day.
Thank
But
you very much.
definitely love to have you. Definitely continue to monitor the Maddie's Forum chat to kind of continue this conversation. what could we do to make policy more inclusive for pets in Cincinnati? Like, what kind of support do you need from the outside world to kind of help you do that? Because the more we do that, the better world the life is going to get. So, yeah, just continue this conversation. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Sheila, for having me. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Is there anything else we need to say to close this evening out? I think I have a script.
We will just share our reflection question, but thank you, Ray, as we get that pulled up. I also want to shout out that Ray's mom is here. So cool. It's a whole family vibe here today, but truly that was amazing. I really love the emphasis on community care and how that's exemplified through your program, Garrett. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Wow.
And so for folks who would like to join us on the forum and answer our reflection question, or just take this with you to carry with you throughout the week, if this kind of program isn't in your community yet, who could work together to make it happen and what challenges might they face? So let's brainstorm that together. And Ray, thank you so much for being my co-host today. I will definitely look forward to seeing you for future calls in October. For everybody who might be joining us for the rest of the month, next week is canceled in observance of Indigenous Peoples Day. But we will be back on the 20th with a conversation with Janelle Griffith, who was actually last month's host, so you all know her, and she'll be here with a conversation around supporting someone experiencing domestic violence. Garrett, thank you so much for joining us. And for any folks who would like to host or would like to speak or have topics you would like to hear about in the future, please let us know on Maddie's Pet Forum. We'll drop the link in the chat. But truly, this was a wonderful call, and I definitely have my own takeaways, and I look forward to continuing the conversation on the forum. Thanks so much, everyone. And thanks, Daisy. She did a great job.
She started snoring at the very end.
She's like, yeah, this is all right.